Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy folks, and welcome back to another exciting, fun, fantastic episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, me, Luke, the Ginger Bookworm. I haven't done that one in a while. It's usually just me, Luke. But hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good. Good morning, good evening, and good night, depending on where you are in the world. I don't know why I did that one. It's a bit random. I'm feeling good. As you can tell, I'm in another good mood. To be honest, I'm always in a good mood whenever I get round to doing podcasting. Haven't been well over the weekend. I've had a bit ups and downs, bit of a stomach pains and blocked nose, cloudy head. So I haven't been able to plan and do things for the podcast. So it's nice now that I'm feeling a bit better to get into doing something that I love and doing it for you guys and doing it for myself, because at the end of the day, I love it. I just love this stuff. So before I get into the topics today, which I'm really, really excited to, because we haven't done this one in a while. First of all, got to do the business, got to do the boring side of it all. So, as always, if you're a regular listener to the Nerdstalgic podcast, you will know that World of Books have kindly decided to sponsor the show and sponsor every episode from now till the end of the year. So, thanking you. But what that means for you guys, why that's important for you folks listening at home, it means that they've given me a promo code that gives you 10% off on your order. Now, that could be from anything in their store. That could be from books, video games, movies, vinyl, anything and everything that they sell. 10% off your order, and the more you buy, the higher the percentage, the more you get off. It's weird how it works. I'm not very good with maths. But by using the code NERDY10, that's NERDY10, all higher case, at checkout, get 10% off on whatever you buy at checkout. So I want to say thank you to World of Books for sponsoring the show and this episode. Anyway, moving on to today's topic. So today's topic, I'm going back to my Remember Blue Sky Studios series. For all you folks that don't know what that is, I'll give you a quick recap. I'd say a month or two ago now. I think it was last month. I can't remember. But basically, Blue Sky Studios released their final short film, which is only like upwards of 4 minutes, 3-4 minutes long, basically showing Scrat getting his nut for the last time. Basically, what it means is the fact that because Disney acquired Blue Sky Studios when they had the whole merger of Fox, that basically they decided to liquidate and get rid of, disband Blue Sky Studios entirety, and then absorb them into the rest of all their other animated studios, which again, I won't go into huge detail. I did it in my first ever episode. You can go check that out now. It's called Remembering Blue Sky Studios plus Bunny Review. So you can go back and check that out. I'll go into more detail there. But basically, I decided that I was going to have a look back on some of the amazing movies that Blue Sky Studios produced. They didn't make a lot, but for me, growing up, I was born in '98, so I basically grew up through the beginning of the noughties all the way up to the tens and to now, really. And through that time, Blue Star. I always, one of the things you're going to get used to if this is the first episode you're listening to of this series, is that I'm going to get tongue tied with Blue Sky Studios a lot. I might just call them Blue Sky because it's easier. But growing up with Blue Sky, they were a cornerstone of my childhood, from the Ice Age to what we're going to talk about today with robots, and what they did in later on with Ferdinand and the Peanuts movie. I love the Peanuts movie. Horton Hears a Who, one of my favorites. One of my favorite quotes from that, which I quote all the time, which I won't get to now. You're gonna have to wait until I get around to reviewing that movie, which shouldn't be long. I think that's actually the next one that I'm going to talk about after this one, so it won't be a long wait for that one. But I just love this studio, and because I have so much nostalgia for them and so much love, that I decided to go back and talk about them. So that gives you a brief explanation as to what and why I'm doing this series. And I do recommend that you go back. As I mentioned, I talked about in my first episode, I talked about the whole fiasco, what's going on with them and why they were shut down, and my views on that. and I did a short review of their first ever animated movie, and then I did a review about Ice Age, which was their first actual movie that came out in a cinema. So I talked about that, and next on the list is what I'm going to talk about today. So the next on the list is, as I mentioned, the movie Robots. This movie came out in, I know it's 2005. That's it. It came out the 11th of March 2005. So the Ice Age came out in March the 15th, 2002. So this came out 3 years later, in 2005. A little bit of a description, not I would do a description of the plot, but a bit of description of the movie. Right, going down from my notes. So, Robots is a 2005 American animated movie produced by Blue Sky Studios and distributed by 20th Century Fox. It was directed by Chris Wedge, co-directed by Carlos Santala, and produced by Jerry Davis. It had the voice works of Hugh McGregor, who played Rodney. You've got Will Denton, who played Crawford Wilson as a younger Rodney. Halle Berry as Cappy. Robin Williams as Fender. I miss Robin Williams so much. You got Mel Brooks as Bigwell. Greg Kinnear as Phineas T. Ratchet. Jim Broadbent as Madam Gasket, Amanda Bynes as Piper Pinwheel, Drew Carey as Crank Davis, Jennifer Coolidge as Aunt Fanny, Harland Williams as Lugnut, Stanley Tucci as Herb Cobblebottom, which was Rodney's father. Which, to us, I love Stanley Tucci. I think he's one of these actors. Every time he appears in any movie he's in, he just makes it better. You know, he's one of my favorite actors, but I feel like he's an under appreciated actor. Like I said, he's an actor that like has a lot of awards and he's well known, but like I just feel like he doesn't get as much love as he deserves. He's more of a background character. He's more of a supporting actor. But either way, I think he just does an amazing job whenever he appears. He always makes me smile. So Stanley Tucci's in it. Diane West plays Linda Cobblebottom. Again, Chris Wedge is in it. Natasha Lyonne. Apparently in the US version, she played Kat D, and in the US version she was Loretta Gara. But in the English version, for some reason, it was Kat Deely played the same character. I wonder why they changed. That's a bit odd, but it just goes down. You've got Paul Giamatti as Tim the Gatekeeper, and so on and so forth. I could be here all day just talking about that, but you're not here to hear about that. The movie was developed. The film began development in 2000, way before Robots. So this is what they were planning at the beginning of 2000, when Wedge and Joyce failed to adapt Joyce's book Santa Claus, and they decided to do a story on robots. The story follows a robot named Rodney Cobblebottom who seeks out his idol at his company in Robot City, only to discover a plot by its new owner to cheat older robots into buying expensive upgrades. Robots was theoretically released on March the 11th, 2005. It grossed $262.5 million worldwide against a $75 million budget and received positive reviews. Now, before I get into the plot, I want to talk about my thoughts and feelings on this movie. Overall, I love this film. As I mentioned, this was a cornerstone of my childhood. Growing up with Blue Sky and watching a lot of their movies, a lot of them, especially being the age of 2005. So hold on, I was born in 98, so that's one. Hold on a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I was about 7 years old. Actually, no, this came out in March and I was born in January. So yeah, I was about 7 years old when this movie came out. And the movie spoke to me. And the reason this movie spoke to me is because I might get a bit soppy here. I might get a bit emotional. And I do apologise for that because I know a lot of people don't like that kind of stuff. But I'll give you a pre-warning if it comes. But growing up, I mentioned it prior in my survivalist sort of episode that I did about the zombie survival guide, that I grew up, I wanted to be an adventurer. Where that comes from is not just from watching, Discovery Channel and Ray Mears and all that, and Bear Grylls and Steve Irwin. It came from a lot of the movies that I watched when I was younger. Watching Indiana Jones, watching adventure sort of movies where you had the hero and going up against the great odds, superhero movies, stuff like that. I wanted to be an astronaut, and I wanted to be an astronaut for the longest time in my life. I wanted to be an adventurer, go deep into the Amazon. I wanted to be an inventor because of movies like this. I wanted I was watching Meet the Robinsons, and after watching Meet the Robinsons, I got myself a notebook and I started writing down ideas and inventions of things that I can invent and create and stuff like that. And this movie was kind of the same thing. It was when I one of the things that I love about this movie, and one reason why I loved a lot of the movies, and the reason I am the way I am now, is because a lot of the movies growing up that I remember is they all had around about the same sort of message, and that message was, you know, follow your dreams. No matter what dream you have, follow it. If you want to be the adventurer, go be it. If you want to be the astronaut, go do it. If you want to be the inventor, invent, go do it. If you want to be a podcaster, do it. If you want to be a writer, do it. Basically, no matter what your dream is, follow it. And a lot of the movies I grew up with, that was the common sort of theme. Is like love the ones that you have. I'm just trying to think of them. Cherish friendships. If you have a dream, follow it. If you want to be something, do it. You can change the world. You could be the change you want to see, and that sort of thing. All these positive messages. Now, I don't watch a lot of kids, and like, I'm a big animated fan. I'm a big fan of animation, either in TVs or movies. Old and new, I'm a fan. I don't watch as many animated movies nowadays. To be honest, there's not many new animated movies. It's mostly just DreamWorks, Pixar, and Disney that you see nowadays. It's kind of rare you see other sort of studios. I think the last one that wasn't, I don't think, was it DreamWorks? I think it was DreamWorks or maybe Sony. I think the last one that I watched that I really, really liked, both the story and the message, was the Mitchells versus the World on Netflix, where the Mitchells, it's a family, kind of go on a road trip, and while they're on the road trip, robots, kind of like Terminator style, try to take over the world, and they kind of, even though they're very sort of silly and idiotic and kind of incompetent family, they somehow use that to their advantage to sort of save the day and save the world. It's a fantastic and funny sort of animated movie, and I loved it, and I feel like it deserves more love than it gets. But maybe one day I'll get around to talking about that movie more in depth. But I feel like nowadays a lot of movies, animated movies specifically, don't have the messaging that they had back then. It's more just the fact of they're more cinematic, which is okay, but I feel like you lose the audience that you're talking to. You've got to have a message underneath of like, it's okay to be who you are. It's okay to be different. It's okay if you want to do this. You don't have to. It's like, for example, the Iron Giant, one of my favorite movies in my life. The Iron Giant. Every time I watch it, it makes me cry. Like it literally. I've got statues of the Iron Giant. I've got pictures of the Iron Giant in my room. That movie changed my life completely. One of the things that I love about that movie is the whole idea of you are who you choose to be. You choose who you want to be in this life. You choose if you were born in, say, in um uh, uh you don't have to be a bad person. If you were born in the wrong area, doesn't mean you have to do what everybody else does. You can fight your way out of it and be the person you want to be. You don't have to be the bad guy. You don't have to be the good guy. Just because the world sees you as something doesn't mean you have to be what everybody else perceives you as being. And I just love that message of you are who you choose to be, and that rung true for me for the rest of my life. That I decided that I'm going to be who I want to be. And from a very early age, that sparked who I am now. And it's the same with a lot of all the other animated movies I'm talking about. It's the same with this movie. This movie just, it has quotes of you can shine no matter what you're made of, no matter who you are, no matter how you look. You can be who you want to be. That's a very beautiful message, and that for a lot of kids and for me growing up, that rung true of being like, no matter how you dress, no matter how you look. Again, I'm ginger, so growing up in primary school, I got picked on a lot for being ginger. It made me know and kind of teach me that it's okay to be ginger. There's nothing wrong with it. That it's just a hair color. I can still shine no matter what my hair color is. I know, pardon the ironicness of being ginger and being bright, and I said you can shine, right, and all that. I get it, but it still comes back to that thing of you can shine no matter what you're made of, and you see a need, you fill a need. You see people in need, you help out. You be a good person. Again, it's for me, in terms of that quote, it's the fact of, now I do a lot of charity work. I've done things for charity. I did a charity skydive. I climbed Mount Snowdon. I saw a need, I saw people in need, and I helped out. It's the same with friends. I'm always there for friends. I'm always there for people who need me. I'm always trying my best to help everybody that I can. I know that in this world you can't help everybody, and some people, no matter how much you try, will not will say no and try to push you away and probably won't want your help. But the point is that you tried to help, you know. And these are just a few quotes I pulled out to kind of really specifically mention. But the point I'm trying to get at is the fact of this movie for me changed my outlook of the idea of who it is to be me, and also the fact of to follow my dreams. So I'm going to be who I want to be. I'm going to follow my dreams. I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to be an astronaut. I can be a game designer. I can be whatever I want to be. No one can decide what I want to do apart from myself. And it's up to me to decide if it's for me. But it was. I went into, for example, I went to college and university to study computing, to do game design. And for a long, long time, that's what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until my final year of university that I realized, actually, I love gaming. I'm fascinated how they work, and I'm fascinated, to make games. But this is not specifically what I want to do anymore. I actually want to be a writer. I want to be a creator. You know, so I decided that I wanted to do narrative design, which is basically I wanted to write video game stories, but also I wanted to write books and I wanted to write other sort of stories. So your dreams can change, but only you know when it's time for you to move on, or only you would know when it's time to stop. You have to make that decision yourself. So for me, Robots is a very special movie, and I feel like it doesn't get as much love and attention as it deserves. Yes, it's a very silly movie, and again, it's animated and it's hilarious because you have moments from Robin Williams is hilarious. One thing I'll mention as well when I get into the review is there were a lot of adult jokes in this I didn't realize before. But the point is, I'm trying to get in is my nostalgia for this movie is so high because it means so much to me. It's one of them sort of films that doesn't get shown on TV as much as it used to. I think I've mentioned this before. In the UK, we have a channel called ITV2. And ITV2, during the summer, during the 6 weeks holiday when all the kids are off, during the weekend, ITV2 is one of them channels that will always have animated movies on for the kids during the day and obviously during the night, sort of live action movies. But Robots is always, well, say always, it used to be one of those movies that was shown all the time, or it was a movie that was shown during Christmas. It's not so much nowadays. I don't know why. But for a long time, for a lot of years, it was one of those, like Ice Age, for example. Ice Age is one that's always, every year you can guarantee Ice Age will be on TV, especially during Christmas. I know because the Ice Age, Christmas, snow, all that. But it's always on TV. Robots, very, very rarely, you don't see it as much as you used to. But every time it's on, I'll always watch it. It's one of them movies that, you see a lot of movies that you like, and you go, oh, maybe I'll watch it. For example, recording this now on the Wednesday, last night, Tuesday, one of my favourite movies, Step Brothers. I'll watch that movie anytime it's on. But last night, I didn't, because I just didn't feel like it. I had other things to do. But Robots is one of them movies that even if I had other things to do, I'd be like, you know what? I don't need to do them. I'll put it on. You know what I mean? So we'll have those special movies that mean a lot to us. That if it's on, we will watch it. No matter if we're busy or not, we will make time. Else, we'll move them aside and we'll make time for this movie. So the nostalgia side of it, that's what this movie means to me. Is the fact of it's a movie that I have to watch if it's on. It means so much to me growing up. It's changed and it's formed who I am today. And I just wish more people would give it the time of day, and more people would give it love. And that's what I'm kind of hoping to do here with this episode. It's to kind of transfer my love and passion through words to you folks listening to this, so you can feel how I feel and go, you know what, I'll give it a go. I'll give it a watch. I haven't seen it in years, or maybe you haven't never seen it ever. Maybe it's something that you miss growing up, or maybe you don't have kids, so you've never had a reason to put it on. But if you have Disney Plus, it's on there. By all means, check it out. It's a fantastic film. I love it. So that's my nostalgia of it. I've talked about the production. I've recapped the Blue Sky Studios part of it. Is there anything else I need to mention before I go actually onto the review? Let's have a look at my notes. Oh, yes. I just remembered. I was going to talk about the plot, wasn't I? So, this is... I didn't do this for Ice Age. I was meaning to do it, but I left it out and I forgot as I was recording. It wasn't after I finished recording that I remembered, which is a very typical me thing to do. But I'll give you a quick synopsis of the plot of Robots. So, in a world populated by sentient robots, Rodney Copplebottom, the son of Herb and Linda Copplebottom from Rivettown, is an aspiring young inventor. He idolizes Bigwell, a famous inventor, entrepreneur, and philanthropist whose company, Bigwell Industries, hires other inventors and provides robots with spare parts. Following Bigwell's example, to see a need, fill a need, Rodney develops a small flying robot named Wonderbot to assist his father, Herb, who works as a dishwasher at a restaurant. When Herb's supervisor, Mr. Gunk, confronts them, Wonderbot malfunctions and wreaks havoc in the kitchen. To help Herb pay for the damage, Rodney decides to move to Robot City, hoping to present Wonderbot to Bigwad Industries. Upon arrival, Rodney is ejected from Bigwad Industries by the company's current head, Ratchet, who in Bigwell's absence has stopped producing spare parts and inventions in favour of expensive upgrades, thereby outmoding robots who are unavailable or unwilling to pay for them. Ratchet's mother, Madame Gasket, runs a chop shop, a facility that collects scrap and spare parts and sometimes outmoded robots and melts them down to create ingots for upgrades. So that's the simple synopsis of the movie. Well, a synopsis is shorter. I gave you a bit longer, bit more sort of in depth than a synopsis, but that gives you sort of an idea of it. If you haven't watched the movie before, that's the kind of story behind the movie. So now I'm going to take a quick break, have a breather, have something to drink, allow you guys to relax. If you're driving, pull over. If you're resting, go make a cup of tea, make a sandwich, make something nice. You decide. And then when we're done, come back and we'll start talking about robots. So I'm going to go on a break. I'll see you in a minute. All right, buddy boy. And we're back. I don't know why I said bye to bye at the end of that one. In all fairness, I should have said see you in a minute or ciao to ciao. Or anything like that, but I don't know why I used bye to bye, so I do apologise if I confused a few of them, but like, hold on a second, why is he saying goodbye for? Anyway, so on to the review of Robots. So, as I did for Ice Age, I went back onto Disney Plus and I watched Robots for the first time in a long time, because as I mentioned, it's not on TV that much anymore, and I don't have it on DVD, so it's one of those where I couldn't find it on streaming anywhere, unless you paid for it. So there was no real way I could watch it. Usually, like I mentioned, I usually look forward to seeing it during the summer or during Christmas. But as I mentioned, again, it's as the years have gone on, it's very rarely on TV anymore. So I haven't seen this movie in a very, very long time. So when I remember when Disney Plus came out and Robots was put on there, that was one of the first things that went onto my wish list, and I just left it to get round to it eventually. But now I'm doing this series, I now have a reason to get round to it. So I sat down yesterday on my own and I watched it. And honestly, it was just full nostalgia. There was a smile on my face from start to finish. I was just so happy, to watch it, because it's just the idea, right, of a world full of sentient robots. Now, don't get me wrong, as an adult, I had tons of questions, and I'll get onto them in a minute, right? But just a world of sentient robots. Again, growing up loving Transformers, still love Transformers. I love the idea of anything to do with robots. I'm there, okay? But you've got these sentient robots in this world that, like, when they have babies, they build the babies. Babies get delivered by a delivery guy. They build the baby, and then they kind of, as the child grows up, they do in new parts, and then eventually you get to a point where you become, I would say, an adult, and that eventually you go on with spare parts, and if they can't get used parts anymore, then you just die, I would assume. Again, there are many questions as an adult. The idea of the fact of like they make a joke saying, "Oh, what's that piece over there on the floor?" Because I've just made this baby, right? And there's a piece on the floor, and the dad goes, "Well, we did want a boy, right?" And then he gets this piece, and then he's like, "You don't see it, but I'm guessing it's like a bolt or something like that." And he kind of just like hammers it on, and like gives him, quote unquote, a robot penis, right? That's something I never thought I would ever say, but here we go, here we are. It gives him one of those things anyway, a male appendage, a gentleman sausage, whatever sort of floats your boat, however you want me to phrase it. And the sort of the baby's like, kind of gives that look at the camera, screams, quite silly. But like again, it gives me many questions. The fact of, are there loads of different other Rodneys? Like, do they just make limited edition one versions of like each robot? So it's like, oh, we made the Rodney version, but then we no longer make the Rodney version because some family over in the other side of the world has a Rodney, so we have to wait till that Rodney dies, and then we'll bring that version back. Because I was just thinking, because near to the end of the movie, the whole sort of story of this film is that Herb, Rodney's dad, gets a bit older. He can't work as much, and he can't get the spare parts. And at the end of the movie, Bigwell gets spare parts to make two of him, and it makes me think of like, because it has a picture of Herb on the front as well, front of the box. And it makes me think of like, are there other Herbs out there? Are they other sort of special? Because it says in the box special edition, limited edition. So is there just one Herb? Like, do they have a catalogue of every single person? And it's like, we only make one versions of each, and then we just make spare parts. Like, because that would mean a lot of people, and that would mean a lot of spare parts. And where do you get all these extra resources from? Again, these are questions that you're not really meant to ask a quote unquote it's a kids film. You're meant to suspend disbelief in reality and kind of just watch it. But then it started making me think of like, hold on a second. So they have chop shops in this world, and it's not illegal to have a chop shop. It's not illegal to have a recycling center, because again, the main villain of the story is somebody who has a recycling center. Does that mean that robots do eventually die and they recycle them, and those recycled parts go into making spare parts for other people? Is it like cannibalizing? Like, is Robots secretly a cannibal movie? Because that's basically what it is in this film. Like, there are many moments in this film where there was a guy who came up to Rodney and was like, I'm falling apart. I need parts. Like, I'm literally wasting away. And as he walks up to me, he falls to pieces. And straight away, people were like, 3 parts. And people picking him up and cannibalizing his body and trying to put different parts on them because they don't want to die. And I'm like, that's cannibalism. Yes, they're robots, but it's still cannibalism. It kind of made me giggle, kind of that thought. But there are many sort of jokes and things like that where like you have to ask questions. Like there's a guy, well, not a guy, he's a robot, but he's a toilet, and I'm thinking that sucks. Do you choose what you come back as? There was a robot who was a lamp, a street lamp. Do you have a choice? Like it must suck. To be like, oh, I've come, and oh, here I am as I'm a toilet, or I'm a fire hydrant. I don't do much. I don't move. It's just, do they make spare parts for those things apart from light bulbs? Like, what if the fire hydrant stops working, starts to leak? Do they patch it up, or do they get rid of him, throw him in the fire, and they bring in a new model? Again, these are the questions you're not really meant to ask. It's meant to be a kids movie, I know, but it was just more the fact of, as I'm watching it, as an adult watching it, being like, I have a lot of questions about how this world functions. There are certain moments where I had to sit there and just giggle to myself. But again, that's the enjoyment of watching like a kids movie that you grew up with as an adult. You notice things like this. Like, as I mentioned in my Ice Age review, I noticed the quote that Manny makes very, very early on when you pretty much first meet Manny, where he's like, he doesn't trust animals that kill for sport, and that links into his whole overarching arc, why he hates humans, why he hates people, and why he didn't want to look after the baby. He would rather just kind of take the baby, then kind of come to his senses, and he was going to leave the baby. And if it wasn't for Sid, he probably would have left the baby. If we're being completely honest with ourselves, because that's where his character was at that moment in time. And then, coming back to sort of Robots, you can kind of see how Blue Sky, how their storytelling had evolved and how it's changed, where they're telling deep stories. Again, coming back away from the questionable side of it, the cannibalism and all that, coming to the actual sort of story essence of it. You have Rodney, who grows up watching Bigwell. He's all of his life, he's wanted to be an inventor. He's his hero. And from watching it, Bigwell says, you see a need, you feel a need. If you look around the world and you see what people need and you make it. And then Ronnie looks around, sees his dad, sees he's tired. He got refitted to be a dishwasher to provide for his family. And he looks around and he goes, I'm going to help my dad out. So he starts inventing. He invents the Wonderbot. And he spends most of his childhood to his teens reinventing this machine, to finally one day it's ready to kind of help his dad. And it works. He presents it. His dad's boss comes in, ruins it. His dad's now in debt, also can't afford the parts. There's no, well, can't afford it. There are no parts for his father, so he decides, I'm going to go to the big city and I'm going to make something of myself. I'm going to make my life better for my father. You know, I'm going to present him this idea, make loads of money, and get my dad the parts he needs. You know, so it's a very heartwarming story in that respect, that he's an inventor, he's following his dreams, he's doing what he wants to do in his life, but also he's going to do it for his family, to provide for his family. You know, again, very heartwell, deep sort of storytelling. And then he gets there and he finds out, he gets his dream crushed, that he finds that Big World's no longer around, and that what his idea of Robot City, and his idea of the way the world should be from growing up, because he was a very small town sort of person going to the big city expecting what the big city would be, finds out it's full of outmodes. It's full of rusting robots, people who not being looked after. You know, people who were poor, can't afford upgrades. Bigwell's gone. He's got kicked out of Big World Industries. Rodney got rejected. They don't longer want inventions. They don't want inventors. Anybody who can fix things, don't want it. Get rid of it. You know, your old hat, go away. So his dreams are shattered. You know, he was about to give up. Then he meets his best friend, Fender. You know, played by Robin Williams. And Robin Williams, to be honest, I wish I had the special, like, one of the things I wish Disney Plus did was they put the special features of the movie, of the films, into theirs as well. So you watch the movie and you can use like an extras button. And there is an extras button on Disney Plus whenever you watch a movie or TV show. But there should be an extras button, and in that extras it should be a special features, because I would love to watch the outtakes of Robin Williams, of him just ad-libbing a lot of his lines, and him just going crazy and just different takes. Because I've seen the outtakes he did for the genie, you know, and I've heard the stories where like there were moments with it where he was as the genie where it went a bit kind of PG-13 to R-rated. Disney would never release them, but I just to know they exist kind of makes me smile, and I kind of wish there'd be kind of that sort of special feature where I could watch the extras of Robin Williams, because I miss him so much. But going back to the movie, like when Rodney meets him, he kind of meets these people that I've, like I mentioned, they're outmodes. They don't have the parts from no more. They're outdated. They're falling apart piece by piece. So he decides, I'm going to fix them, and I'm going to make friends, and that is my purpose, is to fix people, to help people. Again, it's a very beautiful thing of like, see a need, fill a need. You can shine no matter what you're made of. Like, these people are falling apart, but in their minds, that's it. We're nothing but scrap. We just got to survive. We're getting day by day, trying to dodge the sweepers, because if the sweepers find them, they'll take them and they'll send them to the chop shop, and that's it. They'll be recycled and they're turned into ingots for upgrades. So they have to try to find a way to survive. And Rodney comes in and he goes, no, I'm going to help you survive. Again, it's that see a need, fill a need. Help people less fortunate than you. Be there for others who don't have what you have. Give if you can. Help if you can. Again, it's very beautiful, very sort of deep messaging. And to young kids, like, one of the things about with kids when it comes to education, when it comes to movies, is that if they're having fun, if they don't realize that they're learning something, subconsciously they are learning something, as long as they don't realize it. That's one way. Like, when I went to school, a lot of my not all my teachers, some of my teachers were very bland and very boring, but some of my teachers would do different creative ways to teach you things. So you would be having fun, not realizing you're actually learning something. And then when the next lesson would come along and they'd say, so what happened in X, Y, and Z? You would go, oh, this happened X, Y, Z. And you'd sit there and go, I didn't know I knew that, but I did know it because I learned it. I just didn't realize that I did. And that's the thing I've noticed with a lot of movies, animated movies growing up, was the fact that there was a lot of subliminal messaging. The reason I know is because I've realized it in myself. As I mentioned prior, Iron Giant and all the other movies that I watched, they had a profound effect on me because they had subliminal messaging that, it's okay to be who you are, help others, be kind, be friendly, be a good person, make friends, follow your dreams, and all those sort of things. If you don't realize you're being told something, again, sometimes it can be used nefariously, but for good, luckily, these animated movies, they're done in a very positive way. And again, it's that idea of, these are people in need. Rodney, in all intents and purposes, he doesn't have to. He only went there to help his dad. And in all fairness, he could just be like, okay, the big city's not what I thought it was going to be. I'm going to get on the train, go home, go back to my dad, and hopefully I can spend my last few moments with my father when he eventually passes away, because we can't find the parts, so he will eventually, I guess, pass away, die. But instead, he goes, no, I'm going to stay here where I'm needed, where the people need me, and I'm going to help others. You know, fair enough, he can't be an inventor like he wanted to be, but he's doing some good. Again, it's that messaging of like, see a need, fill a need, be there for others, be a good person, help others if you can, be there for friends, be there for strangers. If we can be there, then the world's just a happier, better place. Um, Again, very, very beautiful, very, very loving, and it shows with their storytelling. And I'll get onto this many other times when we talk about all the other movies that Blue Sky did, but I mentioned it in Ice Age, and I'll mention it here. The fact of their storytelling is a very much a beat of just being, of having friends, being there for others, caring for other people. You know what I mean? Horton Hears a Who, for example. I guess I know Horton Hears a Who. It was written by Dr. Seuss, and that was always already like a pre-made sort of story. But very much the fact of Horton Hears a Who, where Horton has this speck on a flower, wants to help these people, and he could leave them and they could get destroyed, but instead he decides he's going to go on an adventure just to save them. And I guess I know that's different because it was made by Dr. Seuss, but it's still the kind of story that these guys like to tell, the kind of stories that these guys tell all the time. With all the other Ice Age movies and all the other films that they did, it's all about being there for others, being a good person. And I like that. I like kind of stories that kind of show you that it's okay to be yourself, be who you want to be, have friends, live life, be happy. It's nice. So as the story goes on and as Rodney's sort of helping others, again, it comes back to that fact of you don't need to upgrade. Again, it goes back to, you can shine no matter what you're made of. Yes, you might be rusty, but that doesn't mean that you're not worth anything. You are still worth something to you because you're alive. And I can fix you, I can help you. And Rodney does, he fixes them, he makes them better, he gives them upgrades. But they're not upgrades, they're just helping them out. Kind of like Lightning McQueen in when he's in Radiator Springs. And obviously at first he sort of hates them, and then once he starts to see the beauty of the town and he starts to see the beauty of the people that's in it, he helps them. He goes and he shops at their stores and he fixes their neon and stuff like that. Again, that's a different story, but that's still sort of the evolution of the fact of the character of becoming somebody who's self-absorbed, should I say, and becoming somebody who's actually quite open and thoughtful. Whereas Rodney, he's already very open, and very much of he goes in for one reason and comes out being more of a hero, because again, he didn't have to stay, but he did, and he did to help others. And again, that's a very sort of noble sort of thing. And obviously the story goes on, they find Big World, and they realize that he kind of has a moment where he feels like Big World has kind of given up, that Big World is not the hero that he thought he was going to be. And at this moment, you have that sort of turning point in the hero story where Rodney feels like, that's it, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go back home. That I've helped all these people, yes, but what for what? Ratchet's in power. Ratchet's going to sort of take over. I don't know what to do. Then Fender comes in. I was going to say Bender then, but it's not. It's Fender. Bender's from Futurama. Then Fender comes in, tells them Ratchet's plan. You can't leave. Well, by all means, actually, we all just should leave. We'll just like get tickets, leave. Save ourselves. Rodney's like, no, it doesn't matter if Big World is not going to do anything. I'm going to do something. And then Big World comes in. He's like, you know what? I thought about what you said. You're right. That's it. We're going to go in. And they take on Ratchet and they take on his mother, which I really, really fun. Sort of that moment kind of reminded me of like an Avengers movie for the Avengers, where they kind of all come together and have this big epic battle, and each one of them has their own special sort of moments and scenes with their new upgrades. Fender has a different scene where he's like being Britney Spears, doing his "Oh baby, baby" sort of thing, silly, very early 2000s, but again, I loved it. And they save the day, and then they go back home. Rodney's managed to give his dad spare parts. This is where Big Boss says, "I've give you so many parts, I could make two of you." And then they had the musical number, which is I think is "Get Off of That Thing," which is a great song. And then yeah, that's it. It ends. Overall, like I said, a great heartwarming story. You know, it's a story of, as I mentioned, being there for others, following your dreams. You know, it's okay to be who you are. It's not just the fact of, you know, the idea of shy no matter what you're made of, you know, not judging others, but it's also the fact of not judging yourself. Because a lot of people have issues with how they look or how they perceive by the world or how they present themselves to the world. You know, it's that kind of message of like, you can be whoever you want to be as long as you're happy. There's nothing wrong with who you are. Just be you, you know. And again, I love that message, you know. So overall, it's a very positive movie. Again, these are very sort of undertones. These like they kind of shove them in your face with the quotes. They, you know, shine no matter what you're made of, follow your dreams, see a need, fill a need. Like it's in your face. You hear it a lot. It's repeated constantly, but it's done in such a way that you don't realize it. Like you know what they're meaning, but unless you're going to sit there and you actually really think about, you pull it onto yourself or put it onto the world around you. Again, it's subliminal. It's one of them things that you don't realize it. It's not a message that you're not realizing that you're taking in until you think about it. You know. So overall, I love this movie, and I can see the evolution of their sort of storytelling. As I mentioned, their storytelling is very much of friendship, being there for others, being kind, following your dreams, having friends, having family. Overall, just being good, you know. And I can't wait to do another one of these. But overall, if I was to give Robots a 5 out of 5, I'd give it a 5. You know, it changed my life. You know, it's one of them movies that's just excellent. A lot of people could probably sit there and maybe nitpick and so on and so forth. Again, there are a lot of, like I said, watching it as an adult, there are a lot of questions I ask, and that's mainly from taking out of the respect of it's being a kids movie and the whole cannibalism and the whole sort of idea of like, you know, where do they get all these, like, how do you order a child? Like, do you go onto a catalog and be like, oh, I want that child, you know? Or is it the fact of you get to a certain age and then they just deliver a baby to you, you know? Or they like going really, really adult, you know? Are they like add-ons you can put onto yourself, like sexual appendage add-ons you can put onto yourself to kind of, I don't know, I'm not really going to get into it, but you know what I'm trying to say is the fact of how far does this rabbit hole go? You know, again, I know it's a kids movie, but like there are many questions as an adult you sit and ask yourself of like, how does this world work? Like, is it all recycling? Like, did somebody had to die to make the parts for Rodney? You know, where are they getting all these resources from? Because you'd imagine a world full of robots, a world full of machines and metal. Like, where's the greenery? Because even the Greenland looks to be sort of synthetic, you know, doesn't look actually grass, you know. So where are they digging this stuff up, or are they kind of no longer digging up, is it just recycling? It's like, it's kind of like a Soylent Green sort of situation. Anybody who gets that reference is really, really cool. You know, so as an adult you ask questions, but if you can refrain from asking those questions as an adult, and you can just kind of shut off your brain and just enjoy it as a child would, it's a good film. It is a really good film, and I couldn't recommend it enough to anybody who just wants to smile, who wants to watch a movie that's silly, funny, but has deep sort of rooted messaging, and just wants to laugh. Really, who wants just to put something on and just have a smile. If you've got kids, you haven't got kids. Overall, 5 out of 5. Highly recommend it. Great movie, one of their best in my opinion. It doesn't get as much love as it deserves. I kind of wish this movie got a lot more attention than it does. But that is my review of Robots. Obviously, I loved it. I enjoyed it. So yeah, so let's go on to wrap it up now, shall we? Let's go on to the end. So let's go, shall we, to the end. Right, so we're at the end. So, what did you think? What do you think of my review? What do you think of my thoughts and my feelings of robots? By all means, let me know on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod. You can also find this podcast and um, yeah, you can find it. What I'm saying, you can find this podcast on Spotify, you can find it on Anchor, you can find it on Google Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcasts. Also, you can find the podcast on YouTube. I'm on YouTube now, so just go onto YouTube and type in the Nerdstalgic podcast and look for my flaming face. When you find me, subscribe, watch some of my older videos. What currently on there is a lot of my older work. I'm currently, as the weeks go on, I'm adding 3 episodes each week. So I'm not fully caught up yet, but I'm currently on episode so this would be episode 32, and I'm currently on episode 16, 17 on YouTube. So if you're new to the show and you want to catch up, by all means go onto my YouTube and you can catch up there on my older work. Please like, subscribe, and all that jazz. You know how it works by now. It would be greatly appreciated. I'm currently at 42 subscribers, hoping to get to 50 before year's end. We will see what happens. Fingers crossed. Also, if you listen to this on Spotify, don't forget to rate my page. So if you go onto my page that you're listening to it on now, and you go down, there's a little star rating. If you click on that, it will give you a option between 1 star to 5 star. 5 stars being the best thing you ever heard in your life. 1 star being, Vogons doing poetry. Absolutely terrible. Like, turn it off. Hurting my ears. Whatever you feel like is fair. 1 to 5. Please give me your rating wherever you feel is fair. Also, I also want to mention, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has been listening to the show either from day one or has dropped in here and there to random episodes. Again, whatever takes your fancy. That my episodes are very random. I know I talk about random things, so I know not everybody's going to listen to each episode as they come. They're just going to sporadically jump in. No matter how or where you jump in, if you listen to this one now, I just want to say thank you to you. I want to say thank you to the lifelong listeners. And the reason I'm saying thank you is because recently I checked my Anchor, where I look for my statistics and all the other things to do with the podcast. And I noticed that we're really, really close to 500 downloads. I'm currently at 499. So I'm literally one away from reaching my 500 downloads, which I'll be honest with you, when I started doing this at the beginning of this year in 2022, I did not think that I would reach 500 downloads. Honestly, that would be something that I wouldn't think I would do like until next year or the year after. That would be like a 2024 sort of like goal. Like, I just hoping for this year that I was going to break at least 20, maybe 50 if I'm lucky. But to think that I've been doing this for only a few months now and I'm already at almost 500 downloads, it just makes me smile and it makes me feel so good, and it lets me know that I'm doing something that people like here. So honestly, I just want to say thank you. It warms my heart, and it means so much. So yeah, overall, I just want to say thank you to everybody for listening. If you're new, if you're old, it just means so much to me. So yeah, I'm one away from 500. So whoever listens to this first, thank you. But yeah, let's see if we can get to a 1,000 by year's end. Probably won't. I'm thinking, if I'm being honest, if I'm being realistic, I might, if I'm lucky, get to 600, maybe 650 by year's end. Depends. Like, I might get really, really lucky, and I might get a huge influx of listeners because of this episode or an episode that I do before Christmas, and that could propel me up to like 700 to 1,000. Who knows? But that's my next goal now. My next goal is to see if I can get to 650 by Christmas, and then we'll see next year. Hopefully, get to 1,000. So I just want to say thank you there. One last thing before I end is, again, I want to say thank you to World of Books for sponsoring the show, for sponsoring me, for believing in me and believing in the show and believing in all my episodes. It really means a lot. but also don't forget the promo code Nerdy10. That's Nerdy, all higher case, Nerdy10 at checkout to get 10% off, save you some money. And yeah, that is everything. That is really all she wrote. So thank you, thank yous. Thank you for listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast. I've been Luke, your host. It's, as always, a pleasure to talk to you through your ear holes. And I will see you on the next episode. So, bye, folks. Hope you have a fantastic day.